actionable tips, tricks, and coachable knowledge. You're listening to Attack Friday, episode 205. When you uncover errors or identify flaws that others may have missed, you are using this trait to its fullest, most positive potential. The flip side is that when you run the risk of becoming nitpicky or cynical, which can keep others from sharing ideas or work with you. Some of the truth stings a little bit, huh? What are your natural tendencies? I mean, when you're not thinking about it, and when you aren't trying to be someone that you're not, how do you really think? What are your natural tendencies? Do you even know? And if you did know, what would you do with that information? How could knowing more about yourself be used to your advantage? In this episode, I will show you how, and I will let you in on what my natural tendencies are. So stay tuned. Hello, folks, and welcome to Attack Friday. And ATTACK, of course, is an acronym because we love our acronyms that stands for Actionable Tips, Tricks, and Coachable Knowledge. And yes, folks, this is going to be a solo show. Yep, be careful. Last time I did solo shows, I had people knocking down my door and volunteering themselves to be my co-host because I sucked so bad. So hopefully after, I don't know, a couple hundred episodes now and a few years doing this, I can knock down a solo show without sounding too bad. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, one of the things that I've alluded to on several occasions throughout multiple podcasts is what is called the DISC profile. And DISC is an acronym. It's D-I-S-C. For those, some of you may have taken the DISC profile. Some of you may have never even heard of it. Many of you have probably taken like a Myers-Briggs personality assessment of some sort, some type of questionnaire that you take, and then afterwards you look back on the results, and it gives you some insights into who you are as a person. Well, the DISC profile is really no different, except it's really, really in-depth, and I'm going to get into what each of the four elements stand for, D, I, S, and C, and then I'm going to get into what my DISC profile says about me. You'll have a chance to get to know a lot more about me than probably any of the other show hosts to date. So let's get into this. So this is an exam, the DISC profile. I took this back in 2013. I actually took this, and I've been following along and really implementing the DISC profile within my life ever since. Once you are familiar with the DISC profile and you know what it means and how to use it, then it's an incredible tool that will help you not only understand more about yourself, but it will help you see different behavioral sets in other people. And where did I first hear about this? Well, I first heard about this on Manager Tools, and for those of you that have been paying attention at home, we had Mark Horstman on. I'll put the link to that episode in the show notes for this episode, but Mark Horstman is a co-founder of Manager Tools and Career Tools, and he actually talks a lot about the DISC profile. He's got a lot of podcast episodes around the DISC profile in the ways you can implement it within your life, and within your job, in your corporate environment, with your boss, with your employees, and your directs, and so on. And there will also be a link to take the DISC profile if you would like. You can head on over to changeyourpov.com/DISC. D-I-S-C. Again, it's changeyourpov.com/DISC. And that will take you straight to where you can purchase the DISC profile straight from the Manager Tools website. And the price of this tool, the price of the DISC profile when I took it was around $30. Now the price is $59.25 because this is such an incredibly powerful tool. Believe me, if I were to take it again, I would definitely pay the $59.25 for sure. And just so we're clear, I don't get any kickbacks or anything by promoting the DISC profile. This is something I absolutely believe in, and it's changed my life, and I really respect the work that Mark and Mike are doing over at Manager Tools. And any little bit of help that I can show them or kick them their way, I'd be more than happy to do it. let's get into this. So what Mark is saying, Mark and Mike from Manager Tools are saying that this is the most effective behavioral profile instrument. You can learn what your natural tendencies are and be more effective by understanding how others are different from you. And I think the biggest struggle that I had getting out of the military, and I didn't even really know that it was a struggle until after I started to learn more about myself, but the biggest struggle was getting to know myself. I knew what I was and where my place was in the military. And the military does a very good job of making sure that you know your place, right? They do things like give everybody the same uniform and put ranks on our collars. Where you stand in formation denotes where you are in the hierarchy of things. You know, whether you are in the front of formation or in the back of the formation, whether you're holding the guidon or standing next to the guidon, whether you are at the beginning of a road march or at the end, whether you are, the military does an excellent job of making sure that you know your place. And you can get comfortable in your skin. You know what it takes to be successful. You know what it takes to get promoted. You know what it takes to have your guys be successful. Then you get out of the military, and all of a sudden, the rules that you're playing by in the military no longer apply in the civilian world, in particular in corporate America, right? There's no hierarchy. There's no real clear structure. There might be, bosses and directs, but it's not the same. Right, is really, really not the same. And I kind of had a difficult time navigating my corporate experience because I was relying on experiences and knowledge that I had built from 10 years in the Army, and they just didn't apply, and they didn't equate or translate over to the civilian sector. So I was really, really lost. So one of the biggest advantages that I had in my life was understanding more about what my natural tendencies were. And then once you understand the disc profile and you understand what your natural tendencies are, then you have the ability to look at other people's natural tendencies and figure out where they fall in the spectrum of the disc profile. And then you could start curving your communication style to match up with those that you're communicating with. Now, here's the nice thing about the disc profile. I'm going to get into that here in a minute, but everyone has some element of all four properties, D, I, S, and C. Everyone. It all depends on what level is the highest for you, and the next highest, then the next highest, and the next highest. So everybody has some element of all four of these. This isn't one of those things where everyone is just a D, or everyone is just an I, or everyone is just an S, or just a C. Everyone has a little bit of everything, and combined makes your disc profile. Now, what I say about natural tendencies is this. Just because you are whatever you are at the steady state or at the resting state or your natural tendencies, that doesn't mean that that's what you are forever and you're locked into that and you can't change those tendencies to your environment. You absolutely can change. The whole point of the disc profile is to understand what your natural tendencies are. So if you need to alter those, given a certain situation or circumstance, then you have the ability to curtail your behavior to match a different set of tendencies. What this means is it's not like a jail cell where you take the disc profile and you find out you're one profile, you slam the door, you throw away the key, and that's what you are forever. It's just like your resting heart rate, right? If you sit down and you relax for a little while, you take your heart rate and it's, whatever your resting heart rate is. But you have the ability to increase your heart rate by standing up, maybe doing some jumping jacks, doing some, push-ups or whatever. You can actively change your environment and change your behavior to influence your heart rate. Or conversely, you can sit in your chair and you've got your resting heart rate and you can, sit more comfortably and you can close your eyes and you can inhale really deeply and exhale really deeply, almost in a meditative state, and you can actually lower your heart rate, right? By changing your environment and changing your behavior, you can change your resting state. Well, this is really no different. The disc profile is really just who you are naturally at your resting state. And once you know your starting point, then you can fluctuate your environment and your behavior to adapt to where you need to be given a circumstance. All right, so let's get into this. DISC, D-I-S-C. we're going to get into these terminologies called high I, high D, high S, or high C. And what that means is if you're a high D, and then that means that D is your more dominant attribute of the disc profile. If you're a high S, then S is your more dominant profile, and we'll get into that. So dominance achieves success by taking decisive actions towards their goals. Strengths: comfortable in a leadership role, problem solver, can make tough decisions, not afraid to confront issues, sees change as a challenge, stays focused on the mission. Now, this is the D's limitations. Others may see intimidating, intensive, impatient, intolerant, unapproachable. So here's some examples: Vince Lombardi, Norman Schwarzkopf, Jane Fonda, Margaret Thatcher, and George Patton. Those were all high D's. Now we move over and we're going to talk about high I. High I, or influence. I stands for influence. This person achieves success by persuading others to work with them towards the goal. So the high I strengths: always available for others, inspiring to be around, spreads positive attitude, praises others. Now the limitations of a high I: others may see them as tasks fall through the cracks, projects don't get finished, lack organization. Some examples of some high I would be Willard Scott, Muhammad Ali, Tracy Ullman, Magic Johnson, Bill Clinton, and Katie Couric. Now we'll get into the C's. Conscientious. So a high C works within rules and procedures to ensure success. A high C strengths are thorough, follow standards accurately, diplomatic, accurate, and fair, because following the rules does that. Limitations of a high C is others may see them as overly concerned with perfection, aloof, delayed decisions, want more data, fussy about minor issues. Some examples of a high C is Colin Powell, Mr. Spock, Joe Friday, Bill Gates, Jackie Kennedy Onassis. And last, the high S. S stands for steadiness. A high S works with others as part of a team to achieve success. The strengths of a high S is a good team player, empathetic to others' needs, methodical, a good listener, easy to get along with, appreciative of others, and praises. Some limitations of a high S: others may see them as indecisive, indirect, resistant to change, sometimes worn down by others' problems. Some examples of a high S would be Mother Teresa, Mr. Rogers, Pope John Paul, John Denver, and Charlie Gibson. All right, so those are the four elements: the D, the I, the S, the C, and again, D is dominance, I is influence, C is conscientious, and S is steadiness. So when I took this test, it asked me a series of questions. It took me quite a while, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 minutes or so to go through and answer all the questions. And obviously, garbage in, garbage out, right? So the more honest you answer the questions, the more accurate the results are going to be. And it turns out that my disc profile, so if I were to spell disc, D-I-S-C, my profile is what's considered to be a results-oriented profile. On a scale of 1 being low and 7 being high, I scored a 7 in the D, a 4 in the I, a 1 in the S, and a 2 in the C. So my score is 7.412, which gives me a profile of a results-oriented high D. So I'm a high D, high I, meaning high D first and high I second. So let's get into some of what this is kind of gets into the nitty-gritty stuff right here. So I'm going to talk about myself here in the third person. I'm actually reading some of the report that I get when you're done taking the exam and you get your profile. Here's some of the information. I'm going to read it directly for what my profile says about me. It says, Edward, your highest dimension based on your responses to your perceptions of the environment and the amount of control you feel you have in that environment is D for dominance. You are high in the dominance dimension. As a result, you are likely to be focused on shaping your environment by overcoming opposition to achieve results. Those who are strong in the dominance, or the high Ds, like to take action to achieve the results they desire. They seek opportunities for advancement and individual accomplishment, and they often aspire to positions of power and authority. The main objectives for people in the dominance are typically control and results, with the freedom to make quick decisions whenever necessary. Troubleshooting issues and solving problems do not intimidate high Ds, even if this means questioning the status quo. People high in dominance have no problem tackling varied activities and embracing a wide range of tasks. In fact, they work best when receiving difficult assignments or getting the occasional shock to their worldview. No wonder why I named the show Change Your POV, right? To produce their highest quality of work, high Ds need to identify with the group and to pace themselves. This can be challenging because people high in dominance dislike being controlled or limited by others. Bosses and coworkers can complement these individuals by helping to structure a predictive environment for themselves when needed, because calculating risks and employing caution are not their strong suits. Those high in dominance would be wise to surround themselves with people who have these skills. Similarly, weighing the pros and cons of a situation is probably not in their nature, as they are focused on action rather than deliberation. So help in that area would also be valuable. A person high in dominance should verbalize reasons for conclusions whenever possible. Often, it might be difficult for high Ds to understand they have to depend on people, but if aided by individuals who recognize their needs of others, it may become clear. Of course, it also helps if those high in dominance just learn to relax more often. So each of us have a set of strengths that make us unique and valuable, and we like to be acknowledged for our strengths as well as feel effective in our environment. However, any strengths, when used excessively or inappropriately, can be perceived as weakness. So we're going to read over the highlighted words for my profile. These are adjectives that describe high, medium, and low behavior for each dimension. So here we go. So we're going to read the words that describe me in my D dimension. Remember, I scored a 7 in that. So people with your score on the D dimension may be generally described by the following adjectives: egocentric, direct, daring, domineering, and demanding. And each of these words has a description next to it. And I won't read all of them, but I'll read one. Let's see. Egocentric, let's read that one. Heavy opposition or distracting events usually do not affect your unwavering focus on accomplishing your goals. Being self-focused can be a benefit to the team when red tape or lack of consciousness sidetracks your colleagues. Don't forget, however, that focusing too much of your attention inward can be perceived as tedious or self-absorbed. So the words or the adjectives that were used to describe me in the I dimension are poised, charming, confident, convincing, observing, discriminating, and reflective. So let's read one. Discriminating. Ideas and plans often compete with one another, so it is good to have a distinct idea of what the desired results should be. The ability to discriminate among various proposals ensures that the best one will rise to the top. But taken too far, this trait can lead to closed-mindedness. The next dimension, the S dimension. People with my score in the S dimension may be generally described by the following adjectives: change-oriented, fault-finding, spontaneous, frustrated by the status quo, and active. So let's read one. Fault finding. When you uncover errors or identify flaws that others may have missed, you are using this trait to its fullest, most positive potential. The flip side is that when you run the risk of becoming nitpicky or cynical, which can keep others from sharing ideas or work with you. Some of the truth stings a little bit, huh? All right, C, the C dimension. People with my score on the C dimension may be generally described by the following adjectives: persistent, interdependent, rigid, firm, stubborn, arbitrary, and rebellious. So let's read rigid. Holding yourself and others to a high standards is an admirable skill. This is especially true whenever a quality outcome is necessary, not a luxury. However, if you shun flexibility, you may create animosity with others and miss opportunities for process improvement. Wow. Yeah, man. The way in which a person's 4 dimensions of dominance, influence, steadiness, and consciousness combines creates a profile pattern that is different from each combination. Research has discovered 15 unique patterns that most commonly occur. Additionally, theoretical and clinical research then helped develop descriptions for each classical profile. So my classical profile is results-oriented pattern. So this is my description of a results-oriented pattern. Edward's motivation. As someone with a results-oriented pattern, Edward, you tend to be a quick thinker who displays self-confidence. You are usually determined and persistent, to the point that most likely embrace a persona of rigid individualism. You may frequently display a dominant personality that increases the odds you will be viewed as a forceful or direct. Often you may crave positions of importance and authority. In addition, you probably relish competitive situations or the chance of taking responsibilities, and you are usually not intimidated easily. Because you tend to verbalize your true feelings, you most likely have no trouble asserting your authority and ego strength. Your tendency to be fiercely independent may frequently give you an air of self-importance. Adding to this perception is that you may often become impatient and haughty. In extreme circumstances, you may seem blunt or even uncaring in your relationships with others. Yeah, that's true. My work habits. Edward, you probably look for new ways to test your abilities and better develop your skills and accomplish results. Unique assignments tend to intrigue you, and fresh opportunities usually warrant your attention. For this reason, you most likely avoid static routines or predictable work. In fact, you probably appreciate difficult tasks that require you to strive toward a definite goal. A fast pace tends to keep your spirits up and energy focused, so you most likely disdain slow or methodical work. In addition, direct controls and time-consuming details usually annoy you. Whenever possible, you probably attempt to avoid constraining factors altogether. Regardless of your comfort level, when performing a task, you may frequently display a great deal of self-satisfaction when you complete the project. In all likelihood, you strenuously push yourself to accomplish solid results. You are probably persistent in the face of obstacles, and you are usually uncompromising in your drive for quality solutions. Of course, this tenacity frequently benefits your organization. You tend to prize your independence, and you probably prefer to work alone. Therefore, committees and team projects are usually not the ideal settings for you. But although you frequently become restless when you are placed in a group setting, you most likely have little hesitation in persuading others to support your efforts when needed. This is especially common behavior whenever you seek help in performing routine activities. The chief way that you influence your colleagues is most likely by sheer force of character. You are probably quite impatient or fault-finding with those you consider to be uninspired or slow workers. Oh my God. Ooh, yes. On the other hand, you usually appreciate those colleagues who can achieve dependable results. For the most part, the primary way for people to earn your respect is to get the task done quickly and achieve results. True, true, true. Here's some additional insights. These might sting a little too. Let's see. Because you tend to see many projects as competitive situations, you may run into conflicts with your colleagues. You probably have a powerful drive to be the top performer or undisputed victor. However, it may benefit you to realize that most activities are not win-lose situations. Your strong desire for independence means that you frequently do not bond well with a team. Often you may not even like to participate in group activities. Your attitude may sometimes strike others as arrogant or condescending, a perception that is strengthened if you indulge your tendency to be extremely critical of your colleagues. A possible remedy could be for you to consider your colleagues' views and refrain from automatically dismissing their input. You could further help your cause by showing genuine concern for your colleagues. In addition, you could perhaps look at others' ideas and solutions as potential problem solvers. You are probably quick to point out flaws or errors that might delay the result you want. This may often be your justification for taking command of the situation, if you think it's necessary. However, you may sometimes assume responsibility for a project even when you do not have the authority to take charge. One reason for this action could be that you do not want to be viewed as a pushover. You also may fear that your colleagues might take advantage of you given a chance. Rather than overstep your boundaries or exceed your authority, it may be beneficial for you to verbalize your reasoning. Explaining your rationale may frequently prevent conflicts from arising. An additional way to boost your efficiency would be to increase your patience and improve your sense of humility. All right, so you kind of get the idea here. And there's no way I could sit here and read through this entire packet. It's better part of 30 pages of an evaluation. But I really want to get into really quick a little bit of some definitions of the high D. Since I'm a high D, I'm going to read the high D. Now, there's obviously the same set of comparable data for each of the dimensions. But for high D, emphasis is on shaping the environment by overcoming opposition to accomplish results. So the description, right? This person's tendencies include getting immediate results, causing action, accepting challenges, making quick decisions, questioning the status quo, taking authority, managing trouble, and problem solving. Action plan. This person needs others who weigh pros and cons, calculate risks, use caution, structure and predictable environment, research facts, deliberate before deciding, recognize the needs of others. All right, this person desires an environment that includes power and authority, prestige and challenge, opportunities for individual accomplishments, wide scope of operations, direct answers, opportunities for advancement, freedom from controls and supervision, and many new varied activities. To be more effective, this person needs to receive difficult assignments, to understand that they need people, to base techniques on practical experience, to receive an occasional shock, to identify with a group, to verbalize reasons for conclusions, to be aware of existing sanctions, and to pace self and to relax more. So each of the four dimensions has their own description, action plan, what they need in their environment, and to be more effective, it gives a list of things that they should do. Now, like I said, I'm a high D, high I, so I can get into some of the I as well. My lowest one is actually the S, steadiness. So this is the one trait that I resonate with the least. So this is not me. Emphasis on cooperating with others within existing circumstances to carry out the task. The description, this person's tendencies includes performing in a consistent, predictable manner, demonstrating patience, developing specialized skills, helping others, showing loyalty, being a good listener, handling excited people, creating a stable, harmonious work environment. Yeah, so this is this kind of the, not exactly the opposite, but it's basically the opposite of the D. Well, I won't say opposite, it's a bad word. It's the most differentiated from the D. So the D and the S are the most differentiated, and the I and the C are the most differentiated. So the D and the I play well together. The I and the S play well together. The C and the S play well together. And the D and the C play well together. But the I and the C conflict, and the D and the S conflict. So this is very interesting. I know you've probably learned way more about me than you probably are interested in. But if you're curious, I'm just going to read some of the other. Remember we talked about the 15 classical profile patterns? Well, here are some of them. I just want to kind of read them, just kind of get your juices flowing here. Achiever pattern, agent pattern. Ooh, what's agent pattern? Appraiser pattern, counselor pattern, creative pattern, developer pattern, inspirational pattern, investigator pattern, objective thinker pattern, perfectionist pattern, persuader pattern, practitioner, a promoter, results-oriented, that's me, specialist pattern. So there's a few there. What's the takeaway here? Well, I mean, why is this even relevant? Why is this important? Well, I think I said it at the beginning, but I'm going to reiterate it here. The most important thing here is the fact that, man, that the hardest person to get to know is yourself. Understanding what your strengths and your weaknesses are. Everyone thinks they know what their strengths are, and they think they might know what their weaknesses are, but this is a surefire way to really uncover your true strengths and your true weaknesses, and understand what you need to do to get better at your weaknesses, but also understand that too much of your strengths can also be considered a weakness as well. And not only that, but what's really important about the DISC profile is the fact that I know what motivates me, and now I have a framework by which I can have a communication or a dialogue with, say, my manager. I can sit down and say, here is my DISC profile, here's how I naturally view my environment, and this is how I naturally think about things, and this is what naturally motivates me. Would that be valuable information for my boss to have about me? Sure, it could be. But more than that, it's also about how I can take this DISC profile and I can start to pick out where my boss might fall into this DISC profile, where my colleagues, my coworkers may fall into this DISC profile. And by understanding where my boss and my colleagues and my customers and my vendors or whoever you're dealing with fall into each of these categories, then you have the ability to then position your own behavior to match those people you're trying to communicate or influence. So if I know my boss is a high S, for example, then I know that my natural tendencies and his natural tendencies are polar opposites, right? That might not be a very good thing for me if I don't be careful, right? Because everything that I do naturally is going to probably kind of irritate him, and everything that he does naturally might irritate me a little bit, right? So what if he was a high S and I was a high D? How could we come to some common ground? Well, I would at least know where he's coming from, and I would try to curtail some of my work expectations and his expectations of me a little bit. I could position my own behavior and my environment to maximize and capitalize on the information that I know about him. It's all about reconnaissance, right? It's kind of a bad example, because reconnaissance, you're going out and you're looking at how your enemy is structured. What's the position of your enemy? What's the makeup of your enemy? What's the strength of your enemy? Where's the gaps in your enemy's defenses? I say that's a bad example because I don't want to equate your boss to the enemy, but you can consider other people in your life, not the enemy, but not even opposition. But if you're trying to come to some level playing field with somebody, whether you're trying to influence them or you're trying to sell something or you're trying to convince somebody to see things your way, it's one way you can take is to try to implore them to see things your way, or you can know about how you are, what your natural tendencies are, and get a read for what type of person that they may be. What's easier, trying to convince somebody to come to where you are, or change your behavior and your environment to meet them where they are? Which one do you think you would have more success at? I think the latter. And this is something that I didn't know early on. Before, I used to just drag and bite and grab and slap and kick and pinch and whatever, trying to get everybody to see things my way. Drag everybody to my way of thinking, to my natural tendencies. But once I realized that, these four elements, there isn't one that's preferred over another. There isn't one that's good and one that's bad and one that's right and one that's wrong. Everyone has these different natural tendencies, and they're right for that person. I'm not saying that high D is better than a high S. I'm not saying that a high I is better than a high C, or a high C is better than a high. You know what I mean? Like, there is no right or wrong answer. There is just your natural tendencies based off of the way you're raised, based off of your experiences that you've had in the world, based off of many factors. We all are who we are because of there's there is no real explanation about how or why we are the way we are. We just are the way we are. So understanding yourself is the key, is the first step. And the second step is using those tools and understanding how those can apply to conversations you have with other people. So I hope this was just as entertaining for you as it was for me. And check it out. You can go and take your own DISC profile by heading over to changeyourpov.com/DISC, DISC. And it's about $60. It's well worth it. It's $60 worth being able to understand where your boss and your coworkers are coming from, help develop those relationships with those people, understand more about yourself and what your strengths and weaknesses are and how you can improve them. I highly recommend you go check it out. It's not a cost; it's an investment. So there you go. So for the price of an evening out for dinner with your family, you could learn a hell of a lot about yourself and about others around you in your life. Again, this is another episode of Attack Friday: actionable tips, tricks, and coachable knowledge. Get out there, get to know yourself. Take the DISC profile. One additional thing that we just started recently is we are asking for your help. We want to know what you think. We want to know what you think about the Change Your POV podcast network and all of its shows. And you can do that anonymously by heading over to changeyourpov.com/feedback. Again, that's changeyourpov.com/feedback. It's free. It's a quick survey. It's anonymous. Go on there and let us know. Where did you hear about the show? What shows have you listened to? What do you like about the shows? And what can we do better? All right, folks. Until next time. Edward, you tend to be a confident and individual. Edward, you tend to be a confident and individual. Fuck it, I'm not saying that word.
You tried.
I tried like 6 times.
What word is it?
Individualistic.
Yeah.
Too late. I've moved on.